Hello, everyone. I'm Lauren Patton, and I decided to do my project on social stories. Before I start explaining social stories to you, I thought I would share an example. Safety everywhere I go. Everywhere I go, there is something or someone to keep children safe. Wherever I go, there are places with fences, ramps, rails, walkways, doors, or locks that help to keep children safe. Wherever I go, there is safety equipment that helps to keep children safe. Things like helmets, life jackets, or seatbelts. Wherever I go, there are signs to help keep children safe. Wherever I go, there are laws to keep children safe. That's one reason why children wear seatbelts in a car. Wherever I go, there are rules to help keep children safe. When I am at school, my class forms a line to walk safely from one place to another. Wherever I go, there are people that help keep children safe. Parents and grandparents, crossing guards, teachers, police officers, and firefighters all work to keep me safe. Wherever I go, there are signs, equipment, laws, rules, and people working to keep children safe. Wherever I go, there is one more person who may help to keep me safe. He is always with me and will be every second of my whole life. That person is me. Social stories are social learning tools that support the safe and meaningful exchange of information between parents, professionals, and people with autism of all ages. The author of social stories follows a process where they gather information. Authors work to discover a topic that fits the audience. The author then develops a story and illustrations about how that topic should be handled in a particular situation. These stories also contain illustrations that are very beneficial in helping students with autism understand the topic. Carol Gray, the creator of social stories, has her own icon that lets people know that these are authentic social stories. So you always need to be aware of this emblem here so that you know which ones are authentic. Carol Gray is the creator of Social Stories. She is a consultant to children, adolescents, and adults with autism. Social stories are evidence based practices used with people of all ages that are diagnosed with autism. In 1989, she began writing social stories to help children with autism understand what so many of us take for granted. Carol is also known for initiating a very effective social philosophy that one abandons all assumptions, two regards both the typical and autism perspectives as equally valid, and three recognizes a social impairment in autism as shared, noting the well-intentioned but nonetheless important mistakes of parents and professionals. As more information about autism and social stories is gathered, there are 10 characteristics every social story should contain. This was recently updated as early as 2014. 10 characteristics or criteria for social stories are the social story goal. In the social story goal, authors follow a defined process to share accurate information using a content format and voice that is descriptive, meaningful, physically, socially, and emotionally safe for the audience. Two-step discovery. Authors gather information to one, improve their understanding of the audience in relation to situations, skill, or concept, and two, identify the topic and focus of each story or article. At least 50% of all social stories applaud achievements. Number 3, 3 parts in a title. A social story has a title and introduction that clearly identifies a topic, a body that adds detail, and a conclusion that reinforces and summarizes the information. Number 4, the format. The social story format is tailored to individual abilities, attention span, learning style, and whenever possible, talents or interests of its audience. 5 factors define voice vocabulary. A social story has a patient and supportive voice and vocabulary that is defined by 5 characters or 5 factors. These 5 factors are 1, first or third person perspective, 2, past, present, or future tense, 3, positive and patient tone, 4, literal accuracy, and 5, accurate meaning. Number 6, 6 questions guide story development. A social story answers relevant who or WH questions that describe context, including place, where, time relevant information, when, relevant people, who, important cues, what, basic activity, behaviors, or statements, how, and the reasons or rationale behind them, the why. 7 is about sentences. A social story is comprised of descriptive sentences as well as optional coaching sentences. Descriptive sentences accurately describe relevant aspects of context, including external and internal factors, while adhering to, if applicable, social story criteria. Number 8 is a great formula. One formula ensures that every social story describes more than directs. Number 9 to refine. A story draft is always reviewed and revised if necessary to ensure that it meets all the defining social story criteria. Number 10 guides to implementation. The 10 guides to implementation ensure that the goal that guides story development is also evident in its use. They are: number 1, plan for comprehension; number 2, plan for story support; number 3, plan for story review; number 4, plan for a positive introduction; 5, monitor; 6, organize the stories; 7, mix and match to build concepts; 8, story reruns and sequels to tie past, present, and future; and then 9, recycle instruction into applause; and 10, stay current on social story research and updates. The history of social stories. In 1986, Jensen Public School System, where Gray was employed, received a challenge grant from Michigan Developmental Disabilities Council. The goal of the grant project was to place secondary severely to moderately impaired students with autism in the general education classes and vocational experiences in the community to create real-life classroom. Gray was responsible for the grant because she was a consultant to students with autism. In 1989, Gray and other employees began educating autistic students in the general education classrooms and local businesses. She says one of the biggest challenges was that the number of businesses and general education classrooms outnumbered our available support staff. We began training employees in the vocational training sites and general education students to look out for and effectively assist our students when needed. They started sharing writing stories and social packets to support students. They started writing these materials because they were short-staffed and realized that they couldn't be at every work site or school where students needed step-by-step guides to help them through a school lesson or a task on a vocational site. Through these materials, they were able to teach curriculum when the teachers weren't able to be at these sites. The details of Gray's program were documented in a quarterly newsletter called The Morning News. Through these newsletters, Gray was able to see the strengths and weaknesses of her program and her teaching. After examining the program and her teaching abilities, she began to realize what the program needed. The basic tenets or beliefs that social stories incorporates are: first, abandon all assumptions; second, recognize that social impairment and autism is shared with mistakes made on all sides of the social equation; third, when typical people interact with people with autism, both perspectives are equally valued. Um, and sorry, I'm moving my box up and down. After an experience with a student named Eric, Ray realized that she was making assumptions about what her students understood and how they interpreted situations. She realized that she needed to start writing stories about these assumptions and how people with autism might not understand the same social concepts that we do. She then applied the knowledge she gained through her experience with Eric to another student, Tim. Gray wrote a story for Tim so that he could understand a game that he was playing in his physical education class. He read this story every day before gym class, and before long, he was volunteering to play roles in this game that weeks before he couldn't understand. After success with these two students and the stories that had helped them, Gray and other employees started writing more and more. In the summer of 1999, Gray presented her success with the grant the school system had been awarded. She presented her early successes with the stories her and other employees created. Through the feedback from another teacher in Ohio, Gray learned that social stories were working. Gray wrote her first article about social stories in 1991. Joy Garland, the other teacher that wrote and let Gray know of her successes with social stories, they started collaborating together to create more and more social stories. They began to publish these articles and then were able to turn them into a book called the Social Stories Book. It became popular, and then they had to edit it several times in 1993 to 1994. And then social stories are for all people diagnosed with autism, their family members, and teachers and employers. Implementation of social stories. A teacher should implement social stories when a student is displaying a behavior that can be limiting the student's ability to succeed in social or academic settings. Baseline data should be taken before social studies are implemented to determine what behavior needs to be addressed. The social story needs to be one that is written at the student's reading level and use first or second person writing. I believe Gray's criteria was third person writing, so I'm not sure where the difference in those two are, but if anybody could help me with that, that would be great. It should be used on a daily basis right before the student is expected to do what the social story is about. You need to take data to see if the social story is working, and then review the data and make changes to the social story if necessary. This link I have below is just the criteria for implementing one of the sites that helps you understand how to implement social stories. Then if you also go to this website here, this will give you a list of all the social stories that were written by Gray. So you can go through here, and it gives links to all the social stories. The first one is the one that I shared with you at the beginning of my speech, and then you can just walk through here and see all the different ones that she has. Also, being aware of that emblem that I shared with you at the beginning, the icon that shows you that it's written by Carol Gray and her staff, to let you know that it is an actual social story. Now we'll move on to efficacy of social stories. This is an article written by Carol Johnson, and it is entitled The Effectiveness of Social Stories on Children with Autism Spectrum Disorder, a Literature Review. She says, or she has written, the child with ASD often has problems communicating effectively, may display inappropriate and sometimes aggressive or violent behavior when placed in a stressful situation, and experience anxiety and a difficult performing tasks due to lack of understanding. Results of this investigation show that social story interventions are effective tools for children with ASD. Out of 17 studies, 10 showed that social stories had a positive effect on the target behaviors of the participants. 2 studies showed the effectiveness of positively changing the child's behavior. 3 studies showed that social stories did not have a positive effect on children with autism. And finally, 2 studies had inconclusive results. Then there's the second article that examines the efficacy of social stories. It's called Examining the Effects of Social Stories on Challenging Behavior and Pro-Social Skills in Young Children, a Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis by Karis Wallman. And they say social stories are a commonly used intervention practice in early childhood special education. Recent systematic reviews have documented the evidence base for social stories, but findings are mixed. We examined the efficacy of social stories for young children ages 3 to 5 with challenging behaviors across 12 social or single case studies that include 30 participants. Results indicate variability and rigor and efficacy for the use of social stories as an isolated intervention and in combination with other intervention approaches. So basically, it just says more information is needed before the findings are positively based. And then the last article that I decided to study about social stories is Social Story Effectiveness on Social Interaction with Students for Students with Autism by Mohammed Carroll and Pamela Wolf. Social stories frequently have been used to improve the social interaction of students with autism spectrum disorder. This literature review examines the effectiveness of social story interventions on social interactions of students with ASD, including whom, where, and what formats have been implemented, as well as the methodological rigor of the research. Findings indicate preliminary evidence to suggest that social stories are a promising intervention. They still say that social stories are developing and they need more research to find how promising these studies are on the effects of social stories. And here's my reference page. Thank you all for listening and have a great holiday break.